In today's video, I've got a Top Gun rear shock spring, and we're gonna mount it on a KLR. This is a 2018 KLR behind me, but it should work for all years of KLRs. Welcome back, Bikeaholics. Ryan Erlacher here, lawabidingbiker.com. I always thank you, that's right, you, for checking back in. And briefly, I wanna mention a couple things up front. Make sure when you're ordering your Top Gun rear shock spring that you get the right one. There's some different colors, and each color has some different weight ratings, and that's all gonna be dependent on your size, your weight, and maybe what kind of load, what kind of riding you're gonna be doing. So yeah, pick the right one. All right, with that said, what do you say we get this bad boy installed? Oh, and by the way, this is not a sponsored video. I bought this myself, and I'm not associated with the company. But if you appreciate the videos we put out on this channel, there is a way you can support us. I will put a link in the description below to the product. You can either buy it from the Law Abiding Biker store, or there'll be an affiliate link. Either way, if you click through and make a purchase, we do get a kickback. It helps support us here at this channel, helps us keep the lights on. All right, real quick, before we replace the rear shock spring, you'll want to have your bike secured, get that rear wheel up off the ground. Of course, working on bikes on the ground sucks altogether. So if you're interested in the setup here that I'm using, I love this thing. Been using it for years here. This is the Titan 1000D XLT lift. And right here I have a 1,000 pound Titan mini jack to get that rear wheel up. Makes working on bikes very convenient. Anyways, if you're interested in this setup, you certainly can head over to the Law Abiding Biker store. I'll link to it in the description below. We'd love to get you hooked up with this setup. All right, we'll start on the right side of the bike here, and we'll move in because we're gonna remove the linkage nut. All right, first thing is to remove this linkage nut and a 22 millimeter socket. And if you have a breaker bar, it can be helpful because these buggers can be pretty tight. All right, we got that one broke there. Once I do that, I can go ahead and back that nut all the way off. We'll leave the bolt in for now. And now we're gonna move up to the left side of the bike to access the top of the rear shock bolt. All right, first things first, the bolt's back up in there, so we gotta get this canister out of our way. Just got a little strap around it there. All right, once you get your canister out of the way, there's just a breather hose up in here. You can just grab it with some needle nose, slide it down out of the way. There we go. Now we can reach up and pull this breather hose off, like so. I'll move some stuff out of the way here. And as you can see, that gives us access to our top shock bolt back in there. All right, with a 17 millimeter socket here, I'll get back up in there, and we'll back this out. All right, at the same time I'm backing this out, I just prying up. You can have somebody, if you have a second hand, pull up on your rear wheel to take some of that pressure off this bolt to get it out, or I just have a pipe underneath the rear tire, and that will allow me to take some of the pressure off because this rear shock is gonna drop. So I'm just prying up, you can see there, and then I can let it drop down. I got that bolt out. Okay, and this is the linkage bolt. We took the nut off the other side at the very start of this project. So now we can go ahead and pull that bolt out. Move this linkage back, a couple of leaves up in there, I guess. So moving back around to the right side of the bike, this is the bottom shock nut. There's a 22 millimeter, and on the opposite side, I have a 17 millimeter socket set up. So you kind of got to work against each other here. And I've got a breaker bar here because these can be a bugger. We'll see if I can get this broke. And I successfully got that broke, and it was tight. From there, we can go ahead and back that off, and we'll pull this through the other side. I'm going to the other side of the bike just because it makes it easier to pull here. There we go. And that's gonna release that shock here. We can go ahead and pull that out from underneath. All right, so we've got our spring in a vise here. We wanna compress these springs to maximum compression using the preload adjuster here. The reason is we want these compressed, so when we put our spring compressors on here, we can grab as many springs as we can to make it easier to compress them. So we're gonna use our preload here, and the way this works is if it's at one right here like it is, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. You don't wanna go any higher than that, because if you do, it'll pop and it'll go all the way back down. You can actually damage it. So if you're gonna go back down, you go the opposite way. You stay within this range, but we'll go back up right there to maximum compression. The next thing you're gonna need is a set of spring compressors. We're gonna use TUSK. You can get these, I'll link to it in the description below, right in the Law Abiding Biker store. They're good quality and affordable. They come in a little metal box like this, and they'll go on each side here of the spring. Okay, and the way this works is it's set up for a ratchet drive right on the top there. We'll use that in a minute. Right now, I've spread this out as far as it'll go. We want to make sure we get as many springs in here as we can, and I've already tested it, so that's about as far as we can go. And then we'll just finger tighten this down. You see I already have this one started on the other side, so you do them on opposite sides of the spring. Once I get that tight, I can move up, put my ratchet drive in there. And then you can hold this with a crescent wrench, or this is a 1-inch box end wrench. Just kind of make sure that's even there. Once we do that, we can start tightening this down. And if I do 3, 4, 5 on this side, then I want to move around to this side and do 5 on this side. And then I'll switch back over, and you get it. I'll switch back over to this side and do 5, and that's, we want the spring to compress down evenly. So that's what I'm going to be working on. Okay, and then once you have it compressed a bit on both sides, I'm going to go ahead and back out the preload, and that's going to loosen the spring there. You may have to compress just a little bit more, but really you'll know you have it when you can get this spring retainer off, and it looks like I've got there's a bump stop deal there. You got to push that down a little bit, but you see I have plenty of clearance now, and I can go ahead and remove that retainer, or spring retainer. All right, and with the spring retainer off there, I'm just going to start backing these spring compressors off. Go back and forth just like I put them on until I can get them all the way off. All right, and just finishing up there. We can go ahead and get the spring compressors off here. With those off, we can go ahead and lift this spring right off there, and we'll save that. All right, guys, real quick, and we'll get right back into your video. A lot of man hours, effort, and of course finances go into keeping this YouTube channel going strong. There is a way you can support us by becoming a patron member, link in the description below. Basically, you pledge a certain amount per piece of content, no risk to you because you can put a monthly cap. There are benefits such as t-shirts and stickers, access to the private Facebook group, it's a troll-free zone, access to our live video broadcast and chat, access to our premium videos up on request, and access to those ride and meetup events. All right, let's get back into your video. All right, out with the old, in with the new Top Gun spring. Make sure and install our plastic cover in there and slide it right back over. One thing I do want to mention, when you have your spring off, that would be a good time if you're going to change the oil in your actual shock. That would be the time to do it, but that's a whole nother process and video. We're just replacing the spring today. But make sure you're subscribed because we'll probably do a video on that too. All right, and basically the same process. We're gonna get our spring compressors on there, and we gotta compress this down so we can get that spring retainer back on. And we'll start compressing this bad boy down. Swing it around to the other side here. So we just need to clamp this down far enough so we can get that retainer, spring retainer ring on. Got it there. I do want to note one thing. Lesson learned. I was holding down here and really cranking on this thing and it bent it a little bit. I can bend it back, but lesson is make sure you hold the wrench over where the clamp is. That gives it some extra rigidity so you won't bend it like that. So now we can go ahead and back the tension off these spring clamps and seat all this up here. And just finishing up, just make sure everything seats up right up there as you're letting the tension off this spring. There we go. Time to get this bad boy back on the bike. So we're gonna go ahead and put our shock back in and just make sure you have it facing the same way as when you took it out, all right? And remember, we have to put that up inside here. There's a guide up in there that we have to find. So we're kind of gonna just put this in the opposite way that we took it out. And I can see on this side, I'm lining it up. And then we'll get the bottom shock bolt hole in place there, and I guess it's probably going to drop out of there anyways, but nonetheless, we got things pretty lined up there. Okay, and for now, I'll just get this nut finger started. All right, so this would be a good time to make sure, confirm you have your shock facing the right way. Your preload adjuster should be over here, and this is actually when it's on the bike where you would adjust it. So with this hand, I can reach down and push up on the shock and get the hole lined up at the top here. You'll see it. And I can manipulate things around. And I've got it held in place there. And I can start getting this finger threaded in anyways. And once I get that finger started, of course, with my 17 millimeter, I can just get that snug down and then we'll torque it down. And I've got my handy dandy torque wrench set to 43 foot-pounds per the manual. There we go. Of course, just getting my vent tube and canister back in place here. Of course, last we have the lever arm bolt to get through there, and I've got a pipe under my back tire, or you could lower it on the jack a little bit. Whatever you need to do, I can move it around because I'm just leveraging the pipe underneath the rear tire there so I can get everything lined up just right. Just like that. And we'll get this nut started here. So I'm going to finish off by torquing my lower shock bolt and my lever arm bolt there. And the manual calls on both of these 72 foot-pounds. There we go. And of course, I'll just finish this one. And of course, I just wanted to mention, if your bolts are dry and the channels they go through, of course, you could always lubricate that with a waterproof grease. Mine had plenty on it. And just a reminder that once you get the shock back on the bike, before you go riding, do not forget to adjust the preload. Now that we've got everything torqued down, don't forget you have one more adjustment always, and that's your rebound dampener right up there. And basically the way you adjust this is it's just a screwdriver and turn it all the way in, which would be clockwise, and it stops. That would be the greatest dampening. So you turn it in to slow it down, and you turn it out to speed it up. And I am going to do about 1.5 turns. You can decide and look at your manual. All right, I'm stoked. New shock spring. Make sure you're subscribed because we got tons of videos coming at you. Lower dash, upper dash, pannier rack, skid plates, and probably a whole bunch more. I'm out of here.